Now, back to the scenario that I asked you to consider with your horrible coworker and how you would describe this person. Thousands, probably thousands of adjectives we could use to describe persons. But in science, luckily, we found a way to describe these around 5 primary dimensions, and we call these 5 primary dimensions the big 5 personality traits. The traits are classified across these 5 dimensions, so almost every adjective that you can use to think of a person or to describe a person rather is summarized in these 5 personality traits and factors, not traits rather, but factors. And these factors include CANOE, or ocean is what they spell out, and that's conscientiousness, agreeableness, neuroticism, openness, and extroversion. Now, there is a 300 item survey link listed here. You don't have to take that 300 item survey link to get a pretty good picture of where you score on this inventory. You are welcome to take the 66 item inventory, and that's actually the homework assignment for this week. Once you do that, please do share with us your score and your score across each one of them. And we're going to go through and talk about what each one of those factors mean. But there's an even smaller test if you wanted to do a very fast personality assessment. Not for the class, but this is listed in here. Just so you know, the Likert scale in here is at the top from very inaccurate to accurate, and any of the bolded items you would reverse that Likert scale. And then sum them up and see where you score on that assessment. I'd really encourage you to go in and take the homework personality assessment and be as truthful as you can, because we're actually collecting all the data on that and it's going towards the research. So you're helping science get better and better and giving us even more accurate data. Okay, so what do these 5 factors mean? Well, the first is conscientiousness, and that's the C in ocean or CANOE. And conscientious people are dependable, they're organized, they are reliable and ambitious. They're the kind of people who do what they say they're going to do. Of all of the factors of personality, this has the single biggest influence on job performance of any of the big 5 personality factors. Conscientious people are the kind of people who want to accomplish things. They strive to accomplish things. They strive to accomplish task-related goals. They set higher goals for themselves. We see that they tend to also achieve those higher goals. And we see that conscientiousness in research after research is negatively correlated to mortality across a variety of different causes, right? Said another way, it's negatively correlated. So remember, correlation, negative correlation would mean that it's correlated but not in the same direction, so opposite, and it's negatively correlated to mortality. So what I'm saying there is if you're conscientious, you're less likely to die, right, from a variety of different factors, including heart disease, cardiovascular disease, motorcycle accidents, car accidents, just a number of different diseases, cancer. And why would that be? Why are conscientious people less likely to die? People who score higher in conscientiousness are less likely. Well, think about it. Conscientious people, these are these organized, reliable, ambitious, hardworking people. These are the people who understand that even though it's not fun going to the doctor for a checkup, we're going to do it, right? We know that it needs to be done, so we get it done. These are the dependable people. These are the people that you want on your team. When you're hiring, if you do go into something like human resource management, these are the people that you want to hire for your company. Biggest influence on job performance across all different factors. Right? Agreeable people tend to be warm, cooperative, kind, sympathetic. These are helpful people. They strive for community. They strive for relationship. They strive to keep people happy. They would rather keep the group happy than cause waves or they'd even rather be I'm trying to think of a good way to say this, but they care more about being keeping people in the group happy rather than necessarily even being right themselves, right? They tend to be very just excellent in customer service positions, in positions, any position where they need to deal with the general public. And we see that they often will respond to uncomfortable or disagreeable situations by just walking away, water off a duck's back, right? They, as my husband would say, they're like a duck, right? They're like a duck. They don't let things bother them. They will give people the benefit of the doubt. Sometimes they'll even give in to the other people. And there are a lot of studies done on all of these different personality dimensions. But there's one study that found that agreeable people are less likely to curse. They're less likely to yell. They're less likely to use, words that show that they care about others. So kind words, inclusive words, things like this. Interestingly, when we look at managers in organizations, managers do tend to score very high in agreeableness, but surprisingly, they don't score as high as some. And we found that even like entrepreneurs, they tend to do better when they don't score so very high in agreeableness, that they have a little bit of my way or the highway attitude. If you are too agreeable, it can be difficult to manage in a situation like that, especially if you're doing something like giving in, right? There's a loss of power when you do that. Okay, extroverted people. This is the personality dimension that's easiest to judge in zero acquaintance situations. So if you don't know the person, you don't have an acquaintanceship with them, and you meet them, you know whether or not they're an extrovert or an introvert just upon meeting them. People tend to know this about themselves pretty accurately. Me, for example, you go on an elevator ride with me, and you know by the end of the elevator ride that I'm an extrovert, right? These people tend to be talkative. They tend to be sociable. They're assertive, bold. They tend to be dominant. The opposite on the spectrum is an introvert. They prioritize status striving. They like jobs with high status. They like power. They like to influence others. They tend to emerge as leaders in social situations, in task-related groups, in positions, in all management positions. And what's really surprising is they tend to do better in those management positions than people who are even more skilled at the job. And in fact, the subordinates tend to rate extroverts as higher in leadership, even when it may not necessarily be true. People like working with extroverts. They like being around extroverts. That said, people can be, this is all a spectrum, right? It's not high, low. It's not black or white. This is a spectrum of shades of gray. And you can be too extroverted, or come across as maybe a little too harsh. But by and large, people like working with extroverted people. They like extroverted people are more likely to lead. They are more satisfied in life with their jobs. They tend to, they have a high positive affectivity. They tend to be very happy. They're enthusiastic. They have, they have more positive life experiences than introverts, which is pretty. I mean, when you think about it, it makes sense. I mean, it's sad, but it's true. They're more likely to get raises, to get engaged, to get married, to have to go on vacation, and it's because they put themselves out there, right? Now, extroversion is positively correlated with job success, and we know that genetics account for about 30% of job satisfaction, and the main reason why we can say that that genetics is related to job satisfaction is because of extroversion, and then also neuroticism, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. But the reason why I'm sure many of you have heard of the Myers-Briggs test before, and the reason why we use in business Big Five and not Myers-Briggs is because of extroversion for a large part. And it's the way that it's measured, right? So in Myers-Briggs, they'll measure extroversion by asking an extrovert, or asking a person, how do you recharge at the end of the day? And in the Myers-Briggs exam, you would say, or test rather, you would say, well, I recharge by going out with my friends. And then they would say, well, you're an extrovert. Or you would say, I recharge by sitting alone with a book. And they'd say, well, then you're an introvert. And we found that this is not necessarily true, right? There are introverted extroverts or extroverted introverts. And it isn't necessarily true that extroverts are extroverts all the time, or that they don't like their alone time. And so this is a little bit more of a nuanced test than is the Myers-Briggs. And one thing that I'd love to pose this question to you, and I'd love if we were sitting together, I'm going to ask you this question: can you fake extroversion and get the same benefits? Can you pretend to be an extrovert and people will still want to be in put you into a leadership role or want to work with you? And the answer to that is yes, wholeheartedly, yes. You can fake it till you make it with extroversion. You get the exact same benefits. In fact, most studies show that there isn't much of a difference. And really, extroverted people or people who fake extroversion actually tend to become more extroverted in the process, which is interesting. Can you fake happiness and become more happy? Yes, actually, yes. We can trick our brains into releasing endorphins by just fake smiling, fake a laugh, and you'll be happier. So neuroticism. On that note, let's talk a little bit about neuroticism. So neuroticism, these are neurotic people. I'm sure you've met them before in life. They're nervous, they're moody, they're emotional, they're insecure, they don't like anything, they're jealous, they don't like their jobs, they're Trump, right? They're hostile, angry, ugly people, right? Not always that to that extreme, but neurotic people do have a high negative affectivity, right? So they tend to experience unpleasant moods. They tend to just not be nice to be around, and they're not satisfied people. These are the kind of people who you'll see when you take the test. Well, if you're taking the long version of the test, one of the questions is like, do you like your phone number? And I mean, like, who cares about your phone number, right? Most of us would say, like, who cares? Why would I like or not like my phone number? But neurotic people don't like their phone number, right? They're not satisfied with their phone number. They tend to not be satisfied with their food, whether they make the food or they buy the food or go out to eat. Either way, it doesn't matter. They tend to say that they're not happy with the food. And as you can imagine, it's negatively correlated with job performance for almost every job. And neuroticism is strongly correlated with a high level of an external locus of control. So locus of control is where we see the control in our lives. And an external locus of control is when individuals see the cause of events in their lives due to the environment rather than themselves. They don't take personal responsibility for things. That's external locus of control, are people who blame others, essentially. Okay. And the final variable is openness to experience. And these kind of people are curious, they're imaginative, they're complex, they tend to be more liberal, they tend to be more refined. These are the wine drinkers, not the beer drinkers of our society. When we can actually tell whether or not a baby born will likely vote for the Republican Party or the Democrat Party. We can tell their political party before they're even born. And that's based on the genetics and largely on openness to experience, right? And so open people tend to vote democratically and not not along Republican lines. These open people tend to be very tolerant of other cultures. These are travelers. They like to eat good food, rather. They like to they enjoy life. They enjoy the finer things of life. These are the entrepreneurs of society. They tend to especially if they have very high cognitive ability. We see that these are the very successful entrepreneurs. They excel at creative thought, at innovation, at creative performance. When most companies are testing your personality, they look at conscientiousness. And when innovative tech companies are hiring employees, they look at conscientiousness and openness to experience, right? So like if you were going to work for Google, you would take a personality test, and if you didn't score high in openness, they probably wouldn't hire you there because they're looking for innovators there, right? So innovators score high in this. Okay. So each of the different variables, do they stay the same throughout our lives? No, right? They're different throughout our lives. Some go up, some go down. People tend to, actually, surprisingly, people tend to get more open to experience as they get older, up to a certain point, to about age 55, and then that drops off. People tend to get more extroverted throughout their lives, less neurotic throughout their lives. They just stop caring as much as you get older, and then also there are choices that can affect our personality as well. We can, like I said before, just because let's say you self-identify as more introverted, does that mean that that you won't get the benefits of being an extrovert? No, you can actually fake extroversion, and you can become more extroverted throughout your lives. And people do tend to do that. What was the other one? Conscientiousness. Conscientiousness does go a significant spike in conscientiousness. We rarely see highly conscientious 16-year-olds. Okay. Other personality variables, we have Myers-Briggs, like I said.